This poetic narration is a journey through a context that possibly Christ would have made if he was born in this context. It is called crib to cross narration. It's an alphabetical order. The angelic announcement from heaven above astonished God's handmaid. It was an act of God, not an act of parliament. It wasn't an amendment of the old order, but an annulment of it. She had been betrothed, but now would bear a baby boy. In Bethlehem before her wedding night, this was baffling. Confused, concerned, crestfallen, the carpenter chose to cut ties with her. Her candidature in the highest office of his heart, the capital of his heart, was no longer considered. Until in a dream he discerned the details of this deal. It was not a disaster that sought to demolish the decision that he had made. It wasn't a denial of service attack. It wasn't Mary's deception. It was divine. Joseph turned off his air defense system. They didn't elope, but they embarked on a journey to enroll in the emperor's exercise. This was an earthly executive order by Caesar. Mary was fatigued and famished. In her final semester, she carried the pregnancy to full term. But the finance bill was mounting for the soon-to-be father. Those gathered in the land greeted them with glares and glances that gave no regard for the gift that was inside Mary's womb. From Gaza to Galilee, perhaps the Gen Zs were contemplating a hashtag Caesar must go rally. House hunting was hard, despite Joe having paid the housing levy from his ad and stool sales. Yet every hovel and hole that housed even the hungriest of foxes was here. Innkeepers were inking deal after deal of incoming patrons till there was no more room in the inn. Joseph had an unenviable job to justify a stable for his jet-lagged bride who would do with the jacuzzi. The protesters would have said, hashtag justice for Mary, but here they just lived by faith. The King of Kings was kicking his way to earth. He was targeted like a songo. But they could not keep him from coming. The light of the world, the Lion of Judah, the Lamb of God landed safely in a manger he lay. Angels made melodious music like missile launched from the east. It meandered through the meadows, the valleys, and touched even the mountain or Murema. The night sky had a north star that notified noblemen of this wonderful news. One by one, they came to observe this occurrence in obedience. It wasn't in the shape of the orgy of the Paris Olympics. It was ordained from on high. Even there was gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Petrified pathological protagonists plotted to put this matter to an end. They pushed Parliament to pass the baby Jesus impeachment motion. To quell this mission, they quickly left new mothers sonless without answers to their questions. They quoted sections of the law to justify this act. A ride to Egypt rekindled memories of Joseph's namesake, who had been rejected by his own. Like Uber trip was routed with a GPS, God's positioning system. Son of Man's stint was short-lived in Pharaoh's state. The asylum status was lifted. Unlike Springfield, Son of Man did not satiate his anger with stray cats and dogs. Yet a return home formula was cited, Selah. At 12 for 3 days in the temple courts, he tenaciously engaged teachers of the Torah with temerity. What would have been his term limit? They thought, Jesus at 30? He was about to take new territories. With his disciples, they walked together in generosity. He demonstrated his unparalleled and unwavering understanding of Scripture. His iron dome intercepted and identified spiritual rockets aimed at unguarded hearts. He unchained the captives until His fellow Jews vilified and violently showed their vengeance. That the viral images of the victim were on every news outlet, voice and video alike. He wept for them, but they whipped him. Without evidence, they crucified him. In death, they wrapped his body in clean linen. Windows of heaven were without word, but war waged until the PowerPoint whispered. Exactly the third day, the angelic X-ray that permeated the tomb, not to exhume his body, but to express to the world that God had exalted him. X platform had tweets and retweets. The ex-tomb tenant is risen. He marked X to eternal damnation. The young and younger responded to his message. The yesteryear happenings continue to yield where the 12 didn't step. A zillion times this story is told by the zealous. It never loses its zest even when persecution tends to zip our mouths. From boomers to Gen Zs, the enemy lies will not zigzag our dissolve to zoom in to the truth. Because without Jesus, true freedom from hunger, disease, destruction, and damnation is zero to they that seek it. Merry Christmas.